Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. And it's just Marco here once again. I am here today to review a random movie. I don't know why. I saw it today, and for some reason I have the urge to talk about it. It doesn't happen as much. It's one of those times, though. It's definitely one of those times. And it's the sign of a good movie, I would say, or a sign of a movie worth talking about. And I would say that this is one of the best comedies I've seen in a while because it is a comedy. And it's a very important movie for today. I would say, like all comedies from back then, they're very important to watch today because today you have losers. You have a bunch of wimpy losers. They can't take jokes. They want to cancel everyone. They're just complete despicable human beings. And they're exactly the villains who are in this film. The villains in this film, they went from being the jocks, the what would you call them? You know what I mean? Like, what would you call, like, the military frat boys in this movie? And Animal House is the movie I'm talking about. They went from being like those stereotypical people that are just, they have this high status, they're all connected to wealth, a little bit of wealth, and so they think they're above everyone and they have this superiority complex. Well, that still goes on today. In fact, well, I could tell you guys some funny stories about the way that people still are the same as they were in this film. But I won't because I know you guys don't really care. But they went from being them to being SJWs and to being the types of people who complain today. The people with blue hair, nose rings, the people who think that they're asexual, androgynous, whatever the fuck things they come up with on a hourly basis. You know, they're all a bunch of losers. They're all a bunch of whiny, miserable people who can't take jokes, and they want to bring everyone down with them. And that's how they're different from these people. Because the people in this movie, they don't want to be associated with the people in the Animal House, in the Delta House. They don't want to be with them. They don't want to be in the same room with them. They hate them. They think, like, you know, we want to go live our own lives away from these people who are just ugh. Whereas with SJWs, what they want to do is they want to force their way into everyone's lives and then destroy everything and basically just ruin everything and force themselves onto everyone. That's the difference. So I will say that, you know, looking back at this movie, I heard before watching it that it's sort of like an anti-nostalgia movie. I heard that from another YouTube channel. And I don't know, like, it's not as much of an anti-nostalgia movie when you have SJWs today, and you have the types of people today who, you know, they'll cancel this movie. They'll say, oh, that's problematic. That's problematic. You know, these types of people, they're evil. They're pure evil. And at least the people in this film, they're not as evil, in my opinion. Like, they're both evil. They're both evil for sure. I mean, you can clearly see the types of problems that people had back then were, you know, every generation has a new set of problems that they have to deal with. Every generation has a new set of enemies and good guys and, you know, different. It's interesting how society changes and morphs into different types of peoples and how they all fight each other. And, you know, that's pretty much what this movie is about. It's about these different cultures of people on this college campus who fight each other and who want to destroy each other for just some, like, kind of goofy reasons. like, at the end of the day, these guys, they're in a college. Like, they're supposed to be getting good grades so that they can GTFO, and they're supposed to be partying, having a good time, enjoying their lives, since for some reason every person has to spend a big portion of their lives in schools and in these institutions where it's sort of like they're molding you into a mindless robot who is just going to stay in this certain space, stay at this certain position, and you're never going to be anything above that. And the reason why I like this movie in particular, and the characters who are the protagonists at Delta House, they aren't like that at all. The people at this house, at this fraternity, they don't care about anyone or anything. They just do whatever they want to do. And they're probably some of the coolest characters I've ever seen on film. Even better, I would say, than Porky's or Screwballs or American Pie. Those people are all... They're not as good as these people, because they're still like normal-ish people. They're kind of held down by their different limiting beliefs. But the people at this Delta House, they're sort of like inhuman in the way, especially Bluto. And Bluto is probably the greatest character in film history, or one of the greatest characters, because he's fucking badass. And he has, I would say, the greatest scene of this movie. So I did really like this movie a lot. I thought that it was really, really good. There were some issues, but still, I treasure this movie as much as I treasure a lot of older movies that are pre-SJW, ruining everything, making shitty modern movies. There's a reason why they call them modern movies. It's because they're nothing like movies before a certain time period. It's not just because, like, I don't know, like maybe in 20 years, that generation will hate the movies of that time, and maybe, I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not just for this time period. It's not just like a trendy thing to say, like, I hate modern movies. Like, modern movies, there's no comedies like this nowadays. There's nothing like this. This movie is a hidden gem, and I know it's very popular, but the thing that people need to do nowadays is go back and watch these older comedies and say, you know what, I'm going to stand up and say I want more of these types of movies. I'm not just going to sit around crying about Star Wars, about my Lord of the Rings. The fucking snooze fest Lord of the Rings. I'm not going to sit around crying about my superheroes and my MCU and my DCU and my Batman. Like, who cares about Batman? Like, Batman he's become so irrelevant to film. Like, just when you could, like, why would you want to watch a Batman movie when you could watch any great movie like A Clockwork Orange, Fright Night, Horror of Dracula, just like any real movie? Like, why would you want to watch a stupid superhero movie when you could watch any real movie? And so, why was I going there again? Why did I even start talking about Batman? I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna start saying I want more I want comedy to come back. Who cares about the 1% of the society that is a bunch of whiny little bitches, like the people who want to cancel Dave Chappelle, the people who want to cancel J.K. Rowling. Who cares about that 1% of losers? Okay, let's focus on the 99%. And the 99%, including me, we want Animal House again. We want another Animal House. We want comedies to be like comedies used to be. And if they're not going to do it, I'm going to do it my fucking self. And I already tried to do it with Super Dumbasses. That movie was, it was fine. It was just a hangout movie that I just did for fun, because I was bored. And I should have been working on the movie I'm working on right now, but I didn't know about it at that point. I didn't have the idea yet. But I will purposefully make offensive movies. Movies that are even more offensive than the movies that were offensive back then. Because we need comedy like that, instead of the stuff that we have nowadays, which is MCU. They think they're comedic geniuses. Wow. Oh, God. Ugh. SNL, Saturday Night Live. Ugh. Ugh. Like, I just feel like throwing up thinking about these unfunny hacks and their shitty, unfunny shows and movies. They're not funny. None of them are funny. None of them ever will be funny because they're too afraid to actually tell jokes. In fact, when Bob Saget died, you had all these fucking losers crying about how he made these hilarious jokes in his the roast of Bob Saget, or they might have been talking about other people in that roast too. And there are these hilarious jokes, and just because they're about a subject that, it's a sensitive subject, that means that, like, it's not okay to joke about that. And it's like, fuck off. Okay, fuck off. And that's exactly what this movie is about. Animal House, the big message of this movie is to fight back and to tell people to fuck off and to do whatever you want to do so that you can get where you want to be and reach your own dreams. And that's pretty much what everyone in the film does. Even all the bad guys at the end of the movie, all of them, they still continue on pursuing their own dreams, their own passions, and they get fucked up and they get karma. And so anyways, it's already been 12 minutes. Well, I don't care. I just really wanted to talk about this movie for some reason because it was so good. And it was such a breath of fresh air. Every time I watch these older movies like this, it's a relieving feeling like I'm actually watching cinema. I'm watching art. I'm watching the stuff that I wanted to make when I grew up. Like, when I see Thor 4 on YouTube, because I don't go to the theaters to see it. When I see it for free on YouTube, I'm thinking, like, this is not what I wanted to be when I was a kid. This is not what I wanted to aspire to be. These are not the people who I wanted to look up to. These are awful, self-centered, one-dimensional, flat people, and they have no talent. All they have is luck in getting to these positions where they can just fuck everything and destroy everything. I mean, the fact that Marvel still has allowed Disney to own the copyright to Thor is sickening because of what they have done to Thor, the character. It's absolutely shameful. And so anyways, this movie starts off with two characters, and I'm so sorry because I cannot remember the name of the main guy. I can't remember a lot of names, actually. I wish that I had, like, a list next to me, because I feel like I've said in the past that when I don't remember names, it's an indicator of bad quality. Well, in this case, it's an exception, and it's just because, for some reason, like, the names didn't stick with me, or I'm drawing a blank. But you have the skinny guy, and you have his fat friend named Flounder. They call him Flounder. And I was really, really happy to see Flounder because we just saw him earlier on this year in another incredible film called The Dream Team. And in that movie, this actor, he is so talented. And rest in peace to that actor. He did that whole movie without talking except for like a sentence at the end or something. Like, he did that whole movie without talking, and he gave an incredible performance, and he gave just as good of a performance in this film, Animal House. And he was such a fantastic character. I mean, people talk about Chris Farley, they talk about Jack Black, they talk about, the typical fat guy actors. Why don't they talk about this guy? Like, why don't they? He is so good. He's so fucking funny, and he's so likable, and he's just so perfect at just completely embodying the character that they wrote in the script. And that's another thing, is that the script for this movie, no way it could have been written today, because today they wouldn't want to write the stuff in this movie because it's too smart, it's too funny, and the jokes, everyone would be offended by everything. Even the smallest scenes, like the food fight scene, they'd say, all of that food that they fought with in that scene could have got to Africa! They say all this type of shit, and it's just like, who cares? It's a fucking movie. They spent money to waste that food. They can do whatever the fuck they want with that fucking... What was this stuff they're throwing? Like some fucking cubes of green jello and fucking mediocre burgers. You guys don't even like burgers because you're all a bunch of fucking vegans. So why are you complaining about wasting burgers? Like, fuck off. Anyways, it starts off with these two characters, and they're coming to... they go to the shitty fraternity with all the shitty rich boys. I don't know what to really call them because I forgot their fucking fraternity name as well, and so I'll just call them the rich boys, and that's not like I don't know if they're all rich or not, their characters, but they're all pretty much like upper middle class, like, douchebags that you'd see that, they just think they're so above everyone. Like, I'll give you guys an example. Well, she wasn't really upper class at all, but, she thought she was because she was a fucking bitch. But there was this bitch that I went to school with, and, like, she was, like, around prom time, she just sat around bragging for hours and hours about how she was going to be taken to prom in a helicopter, and about all these different things that her parents were going to buy for her. And it's just like, God, this is so gross. Like, these people who just think they're above other people because, like, oh wow, my parents are going to waste money on putting me in a helicopter to take me to a shitty small town prom dance. Like, that'll always stick with me, like sitting there, like, why do I have to sit here listening to these idiots? I mean, they're just so, ugh. That's the type of people in this movie. That's the type of villains that we have here. And obviously, they're not going to be members of this fraternity. But it was a nice introduction, the way that, that we're sort of getting to know these fraternities. We're going inside them. We're walking around these houses. We're seeing all these different minimal, just extras, just these small characters, and we're getting like a feel for the cultures in these fraternities. And then, of course, they go to the Delta fraternity. And at first they do kind of act shitty to the fat guy. And that's one of the things, another thing that this movie did really well, is it really made you feel like you're in these situations with these characters. I had a very negative feeling watching some of this movie, feeling like, like I'm feeling like I am in this situation. Like I'm feeling like that guy when he gets trapped in the motel room, and then all the rich guys, the the rich boys beat up on him and assault him in that motel room. Like, that was a negative scene. And just scenes like that, like, you could feel this suffocating feeling. And it was really good because it puts you in these situations. This movie did such a good job at immersing you in the environments with the characters. And so we meet all the people in this fraternity, this crazy fraternity where they're just partying, and then all of a sudden it cuts away. And I will say that one of the biggest problems of the film, if not the biggest problem, is that I don't really see the story. I don't really see a beginning, middle, and an end. A lot of the scenes in this movie could have just been switched around. They could have just been like the food fight thing. That could have happened at the end of the movie. That could have happened near the end. The scene with the people smoking weed with the professor, that could have been toward the end of the movie, a little bit before, obviously, the cheating thing. And we'll get to the professor because, we'll get to that. And I was surprised about some of the cameos in this movie, or not necessarily cameos, but big name actors being in this film. I was really surprised at, like, seeing Kevin Bacon and seeing Max von Sydow. I was really excited to see them too, because when you see actors that you like a lot and you don't expect to see them, it's a really pleasant experience, because it's like, oh, I'm discovering something that hasn't been discovered before, even though it has. That's what I felt like when I saw these different actors that I knew. So, as I said, there's not really much of a story. I don't really feel like there's many character arcs, if any. I mean, what are the character arcs? If anything, sorry about that. See, this is the one time that I don't mind, like, irritating, like, speeding motorcycles and cars and background noise, because I feel like it's like Animal House. It's like the perfect, like, okay, fine, that's totally an Animal House thing to happen anyway. But I felt like the characters, for the most part, they started off one way, and they never changed the whole movie. Now, you had these two main characters. You had Flounder, and you had the skinny guy. And they didn't really change very much through the whole movie. They ended up accomplishing a couple of things, minor things near the... minor things, literally. Whoops. See, that's another... That was such a hilarious joke, and I was like, wow, they'd never do that today. And I hate to think that. Like, I hate that when that little voice comes into my head and I think, oh, they'd never do that today. I hate it whenever I think that, because I think, why not? Like, why not? That was such a hilarious joke. So the skinny guy, the one thing he accomplishes the whole movie is they're at the store, and they're forcing him to steal steaks, and that was a pretty funny scene as well. And I've heard about people doing that before, and obviously, like, it wasn't my first time, so I didn't laugh as hard as I would have the first time I heard about people doing that. I don't know if you guys have heard about this before. I bet people who have watched a lot of videos have. I stole one time. I was a kid, and I went to the store called Dots, and they used to have this thing at the checkout line where you get free lollipops if you're a kid. And so they had this, like, metal bucket of lollipops. And for some reason, those fuckers at Dots, they took away the lollipops forever. So I guess they just decided that kids don't deserve lollipops anymore. And instead, they put in place of that a display case with Reese's peanut butter cup pumpkins or Christmas trees or whatever, and I took one because I thought, they let you take free lollipops, so why wouldn't they let you take a free peanut butter cup? And immediately when we got home, I confessed to doing it, and I felt terrible about it. Yeah, I wouldn't now because, like, they deserved it. Like, why would you take away? Like, I was used to going there every single week and getting a free lollipop, and they took it away. They took away my free lollipops. Maybe that's my villain origin story, is not getting a free lollipop at Dots anymore. And so I ate it. I ate it too. I ate that bitch. I ate that fucking peanut butter cup in one bite. I just stuffed it in my mouth. You know what? This is the other funny part. You know what I thought? I thought that I could hide the evidence by eating the Reese's peanut butter cup. And so I stuffed the whole thing down my throat. And then I had a booster seat. I was still sitting in a booster seat. And I buried the wrapper underneath my booster seat. And so, like, I was a hardened criminal back when I was a kid. Back when I was 7 years old. Like, I was ready to just, like, go full on GTA sometimes, I guess. And so that was that was the only time I ever stole. Uh, I promise I have stolen things from people at school before. When people like drop a pencil on the ground, I used to steal those because I used to kind of see them as free, freebies. Like, people would just drop stuff and not even care about it. And so I'd just be like, oh, okay, and take it. Wow, that was a sidetrack. But anyway, how many times am I going to say anyways, too? Fucking fuck. They're making him steal steaks, and the skinny guy meets this really fucking hot girl at the checkout line. That's another thing, like, whoa. Okay, another thing about older movies is that means the actresses are all fucking hot, and that means that you're going to develop, I have probably developed like 60 new crushes this year, all because of just watching older movies and just seeing like how hot they used to make actresses be in these films. And they didn't even have to put much effort into it because they're just so naturally beautiful. And they were just such nice people, too. And being nice also kind of radiates attractiveness. And in this film in particular, we'll talk about that. But this hot checkout girl, first off, they have this little gag where she comes to a party with the skinny guy. And she's just about to have sex with him when she passes out. And they had a really funny gag with her stuffing her bra, and that was really hilarious. It was pretty embarrassing too. I thought, like, I would feel really bad for a girl who I guess she was fine with him finding that out or something. She just let it fly all over and just fell asleep. And he was sitting there having a moral debate, having like a philosophical debate with himself of whether or not he should take advantage and sleep with her. And that's another thing where I never do that nowadays because it's too funny and it's too hilarious. And that's actually happened. Wow. I never would have been able to figure that out, that would happen in real life. Like, that's really not surprising. So I don't know why they don't do those jokes either. Like, I'll do one of those in my movies. I don't care. Fuck it. And then it's actually good. There was actually this weird thing, this confusion there of whether or not he did or didn't sleep with her, because he sat there like he decided he wasn't going to sleep with her, and then he wheeled her to her house in a cart. And that's, of course, when we found out she was the mayor's daughter. And he wheeled her there, and the next day, they were talking about how they had this party and they committed like 13 acts of perversion or something, or all these acts of perversion. I don't know what that means. I don't know, like, they had sex. Who cares? They're adults. uh, so I didn't really know what that meant. I thought, did he end up sleeping with her? Like, that's pretty. That wouldn't make me like his character anymore, that's for sure. And then later on, of course, he gets another chance at sleeping with her, and then she reveals that she's 13 years old. And I thought, like, oh no, that is just, oh, that was crushing. And that was a lot of the humor in this movie too. Was a lot of characters, they expect something really good and they get something really shitty in return. That just these really rude surprises. And I think that Harold Ramis, he really liked rude surprises. Like the thing in Ghostbusters when Bill Murray wants to sleep with the woman from Alien, Sigourney Weaver, and obviously she's possessed by a demon. And then the thing with going to the library, and there's like this librarian. It's like, oh, she's just a nice librarian, and then boom, she's this horrible monster. He really loves the humor of rude surprises, and I really liked all that in this movie. Especially because I know they'd never let it happen today. It's such a treat to get to actually laugh at funny things, and to get to watch like a real comedy made by real talented people, not people who, the people who made Thor 4, for example. They're not talented. So that's his story in the movie, and so like, really, he doesn't really have a character arc. He doesn't, like, even though we start off with his character and we start off with his fat friend, Flounder, they really don't have character arcs. And that was sort of a problem for me, since I felt like they were freshmen and they were just being accepted into this fraternity. And so maybe they could have had it where they both had character arcs, and then of course the Delta fraternity, they stayed the same the whole movie. That would have been fine with me. That would have made more sense. But even so, I still really like the movie a lot. And then with Flounder, he has a ton of stuff that happens to him the whole movie. I mean, the thing with the horse alone is hilarious. There's this thing where, for some reason, the military fraternity guys are pushing him around, and they're forcing him to do all this laborious work. I was kind of confused at, like, why he's being forced to do that stuff. Like, he's not a part of their fraternity, so, like, why is that? Like, it wasn't like they dragged him to that horse area, to the horse pen, to like clean up the horse shit and stuff. They said report back to the horses at this hour late at night without your your Delta pin on. And so that weird thing of like it's almost like he's required to go to the military fraternity guys so that they can force him to do stuff. And I was kind of like, why? Like, just, why is that? And so he meets with this horse, and he really hates the horse, and he wants to kill it, because it's just such a shitty jackass horse. And, it's movie logic, obviously. And so then they do this really, really hardcore prank where the horse is inside the fraternity guys' house, and they break in, and they give him a gun with quote-unquote blanks. And then he doesn't even want to shoot the horse, so he just shoots like at the ceiling, and it still kills the horse. And that That was a laugh out loud hilarious moment. I love that moment. That was one of the funniest moments of the film. And they did this freeze frame of the horse, and it's just like, ah! Like, for once, animal death is funny too. Like, a lot of the times, animal death is really not funny. It's something that, I wouldn't have ever imagined laughing at that if I had known about it before watching the movie. But I was just so surprised, and I just laughed so much at that. And then Flounder, he helps them, of course, with all the Delta's schemes and scams. And the majority of this movie is really just the Delta fraternity doing schemes and scams, and the military fraternity doing schemes and scams too. And that's fine. It kind of felt a little slow at points, if not just like, I don't know, kind of like misguided, like it would just go wherever it wanted to go, and it didn't really feel like it was building up to something as much as it wanted it to, because they talked about how these guys, they have to keep their shit together. And obviously, as I said, Delta House doesn't care. And so, like, they all had these terrible grades. Like, oh, God, horrible, horrible grades. Bottom of the barrel grades. And, it didn't really feel like building up to something until, like, the end. But then the ending was just kind of this big prank where it's like, even though we're getting kicked out of school here, we're still going to play this really big prank because we hate these people so much because they're fucking jackasses. And so I kind of liked that. I liked all the messaging. I liked all of the reasoning behind everything in terms of that. But I wish there would have been some sort of an aim. I wish there would have been some sort of a goal for characters to reach. Because then Flounder really wanted some tail. And he wanted to get laid really badly. And there's this one part where it's a really funny part where they go to the Emily Dickinson College. And one of them does this little prank where he gets a name out of an obituary, and that was really funny, that whole prank. And he got dates for all of his friends. And now we're going to talk about something a little sad. And now keep in mind, I am not trying to be mean. I am just saying this is a trend that I notice, especially in older films. In new films, it's basically like fuck everyone. But in older films, a lot of the times you had it where the fat guy character would get with the ugliest girl in the group. And I'll give you guys an example of that, which, again, just stay with me here. Okay, Rudy. Now, I know Rudy is a true story. Now, Rudy befriends this guy played by Jon Favreau, and he really wants to get a girlfriend, and he ends up hooking up with this, like, cartoonishly ugly-looking girl. And if you look at the actress in real life, she's really beautiful. I looked at her and I thought, like, they really didn't do that. They cast someone, because she's ugly and made her the quote-unquote ugly girl. Like, no, she's really, really beautiful in real life. And they uglified her for the film so that she could be with Jon Favreau. And just the fact that, like, just because the character in this film, Flounder, is fat, they give him this really ugly girl character where she has these big cartoonish glasses, and she has just this, like, I don't know, like a face that, like, you probably try to find a witch so that you could change the look of your face before it's too late. It's just really strange, that old movie cliche. And so that's why I really love that Bad Sister movie, where the movie ended with the fat guy character being married to a babe. and she's making him chocolate cake, and he's licking her finger. He's dipping his fat finger in the chocolate cake batter and sucking on the chocolate cake batter. And I was like, see guys, you should have stuck with that. Don't do this shit where you take beautiful women and you uglify them so that they can be with the fat characters. But none of them end up sleeping with any of their dates too, so that all gets fucked up. But he never really tries to get laid again. They never really give Flounder another chance to get a love interest. So I would say that that's one flaw. It's not like I think that Harold Ramis didn't like the character. In fact, I would say that he really loved the character and that he thought he was probably the best character in the film. It just felt like everyone else got a love interest for the most part. Flounder should have as well. Instead of like a one-off joke love interest. So what else should I talk about besides the most obvious things? Well, I guess I should get to the most obvious things since this is almost an hour. And I didn't plan on it, but I don't care. I wanted to talk about this movie so badly after watching it. And of course, I don't think Safi has seen it. And whenever I talk about movies that have to do with like college or school, she gets really upset because she thinks that if you watch movies about college or school, she thinks that like that's all that that's all that you care about or something. Like, it's really weird. Like, they're movies made for everyone. Animal House was made for everyone. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is the main love interest in this movie. And in fact, it would have been nice to have given Flounder a love interest like this. Karen Allen, who she's most famous for Indiana Jones movies. I've only seen them once as a kid, and I saw the fourth one with this girl, and that was bad. And so I haven't really ever gone back, so I don't really know her from those movies. In fact, I didn't even know who she was, like, when I watched this movie, and then I realized at the end, oh, she's that person. But I knew that she was a really good actress just from watching her performance in this movie as this love interest character. She was such a likable love interest without being too over the top, like just just really like Scarlett Johansson, like Betty Davis, Audrey Hepburn. Like, she's on the level of them, but it has a lot to do with her personality. She has this very nice personality, like you just love to be friends with her and just like, just travel the world with her or something. Like, she's just got this like amazing charisma, and she's so likable, and she was a great love interest in this movie. There was a scene near the beginning where she takes her boyfriend to this professor's house, the professor played by Max von Sydow. And they all smoke weed together, and it was a creepy scene because the professor, he kept on looking at the love interest, and I could tell he wants to bang her for sure. Like, he wants to take advantage of that student. And I thought, like, he's creepy. He's weird. I don't like this character. He's really, really, I don't like this character at all. Like I'm not one to, like, complain about, like, I don't really complain about that type of stuff that, Me Too people would complain about. Those losers. Like Amber Heard, for example. The type of stuff she complains about when she was the actual abuser. Allegedly. This professor was creepy. He was fucking creepy. He creeped me out. I immediately knew he wants to fuck the shit out of Karen Allen. And I don't blame him. I mean, when you look into her eyes, it's like, yeah. It's like, I don't care. Like, anything she says, I'm just going to go along with. Like, if she says jump off a cliff and you just stare into her eyes, it's like, oh, yeah, I'll jump off a cliff. Like, no, not really. But, like, just, she is like oh. There are too many. I'm just seeing too many of these fantastic old movie love interests. Like, that's one of the best things about old movies is they have these love interests that you actually fall in love with yourself. Whereas nowadays, you want to stay as far away from the people that they call love interests as possible. Like, I'm sorry, but I'd rather really jump off a cliff than date the female Thor in Thor 4. Oh god, ugh, ugh. But the professor, he ends up sleeping with her, and it was so out of character, and it was so shitty, and that was one of the low points of the entire film. Was seeing this fantastic 10 out of 10, A plus love interest, this fantastic character. She is one of the stars of the film, even though she's not even a part of the Delta fraternity. She's fucking awesome. And she was like one of my favorite characters. And then it's like she sleeps with the professor? Like, ew. They should have done, even though I would have said it was cliche, they should have done a miscommunication thing where she had a friend and the professor slept with her friend, and then he ended up trying to hit on her as well, and then hitting on her, I don't know, maybe he'd be hitting on her naked, and that's when the guy would walk in or something. But like her sleeping with him, like, ugh, they ruined her character. They ruined her. Like, I would never, ever, ever, like, ew. I would never, ever, 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 ever want to be associated with that character again. Ever. That is just gross. And then at the end of the movie, for some fucking reason, like, I don't know, I guess because he realized it's Karen Allen in real life, and it's just like, okay, whatever. But for some fucking reason, at the end of the movie, they're charging at each other like nothing has happened. Like they just don't even care. It is so weird. It is so abnormal to just pretend like, oh, you slept with your professor. But nothing, it's all good. It's all good, man. That was so bizarre. They tried to treat it like this happy, uplifting ending. I guess maybe like they're not really taking a stance on whether you should forgive that character or not. But it was weird because like, ew. Like, ew. Like they could have made it up to be like a dream sequence or something. I don't know. Like they could have done something. Didn't they do that in Office Space where like he thought that she slept with his boss and then it turned out to be a different guy? Like, see, something like that would have been good. Because I just didn't like her character at all after that. I was like, ew. Like they just ruined a classic love interest for a joke so that they could show Max von Sydow's bare ass. And by the way, they showed hers as well. And that was another great thing about this film was there was a lot of nudity. And and the reason why I like that is because it felt like in this movie nobody was constricted. The whole movie, I gotta be honest, guys, the whole movie, I looked at Karen Allen and I thought, there's no way. You could tell, like, all the other characters in the movie, they just, like, pull their tops off like they're brushing their teeth or something for the character. Oh, and that brings up the peeping Tom scene was hilarious. That was another really funny scene, even though, of course, it wasn't the Porky scene, which is, iconic, top 10 scenes of all time. that scene, sorry, someone's just, okay, whatever. That peeping Tom scene was hilarious, but everyone took their tops off just all the time. It was like you could take a shot every time a woman in this film took off their tops. And then I looked at Karen Allen and I thought, there's a reason that they're all doing that. It's because even though she's the main love interest, she's more of like a serious, like a, like I didn't really feel like she would want to do that. Like I could tell, like, she's probably not going to do it. She's going to be the only one in the film who's not going to do that. I could tell. I could just tell. And, there's nothing wrong with that because she's really, really good. And I really loved her in this movie. But then that was so shocking. And it was so satisfying, too, to, like, be like, oh, my God, it happened. Like, I didn't believe it for a second. I was in shock. I was just so, like, mystified by, like, oh, my God, like, the actresses back then, they really took their work seriously. And the actors, too, especially, the guy who played Flounder, just fantastic acting in this film from everyone. Every single actor in this film gave a 10 out of 10 performance, even though I don't think the whole film is necessarily a perfect film. So, what else do I talk about? Is there anything? Okay, my favorite scene in the film is the food fight scene, because it starts off and you have Bluto, and Bluto, he is the best character of the film easily. He is amazing, and he is just, his character. It's really too bad. I looked up and I saw that he died in the 80s. It's really too bad he never got to reprise his role, because he was such a likable character, even though he was fucking insane. And he was so cool. He was like a heroic character, even more heroic than any of the Avengers, because he doesn't care. He doesn't care about the rules. He doesn't care about the good guys, the bad guys. He just does whatever he wants to do. He embodies the spirit of youth. And there's this where he's in a cafeteria and he's getting his lunch, and there's this buffet, or I guess it's like just a cafeteria line of food, and he got his tray, and he's just piling food on food on food on food on food, and it was the funniest thing ever. He was taking things off, and he was eating it, and he was like, he took off the sandwich, he unwrapped it, he took a bite out of it, and then he put it back, and it's like, it was so hilarious, it was so funny, and he got just this pile of food, just like pounds and pounds of food, and then he went to the table with the other kids, and of course they were all like, what the F, like, this guy, he has so much food. And then, of course, he did the zit joke, and that started the food fight. But I really loved that food tray scene, him getting all that food. It was so funny, and it was so perfect for his character. It was just a complete embodiment of his character. Like, if you could sum up his character in one scene, that would be the scene to show. So anyways, the movie ends with them doing this elaborate, really elaborate prank. Sort of unbelievable prank. Like, in Screwballs, they did a prank where they had this girl wear like a metal dress, and they made it to where like it got pulled off by like magnets or something. And it was a pretty believable prank. And it wasn't a very big scale prank. This float parade prank, it was unbelievable. The layers, the timing, just the timing alone of all the things that had to happen when they happened, they were unbelievable. And so that's how the movie ended. And of course, they got kicked out of college. They had too low grades. They screwed up too much. And they also lost their fraternity. So overall, I would say I really, really love this movie. It's a classic film. I don't know where it's going to be on my top 10 list because I'm at a point where I'm starting to not really like ranking a lot because there will be movies like in the middle where I'll say like I wish I could put that higher just to acknowledge it. And you know, maybe this movie's not perfect, but maybe there's certain things about it that make me love it so much that I'd love to put it at number 1 or number 2. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so good. It's classic and it's funny. Like, remember when comedies used to be funny? Like, Ghostbusters Afterlife, that was another, didn't Harold Ramis write the original Ghostbuster? Ghostbusters Afterlife wasn't funny. It was not funny in the slightest. It was kind of cringe inducing. It was an okay family movie, I guess, if you could say. Like, see, nowadays we kind of have to settle for less quality, so you know it's really not a good movie. But in terms of nowadays, it's an okay family movie. But it wasn't funny at all. And in comparison with this movie, like, this movie is hilarious. It's so funny. There's so many times I laughed that, like, I think that the next time I watch it, I'll probably laugh at all the things that I didn't catch the first time I watched it. I mean, this was just such a great film, and I really feel happy that I finally watched it because there was a long time that I went without watching it, and I would see people go like, this is just, it's okay, it's average. And, you know, it just shows you just really shouldn't listen to people and just decide for yourself. If you want to watch a movie, go watch that movie. And so in terms of food, I really have to, I'm going to just go ahead and be like a cop-out, be cop-out Marco today. But I really feel like it embodies the spirit of the movie. I would rate this movie a cafeteria buffet, a college cafeteria buffet. There was a time where I visited my brother when he went to college, and I got to eat at his cafeteria, and they had just so much food that it was just like endless possibilities. And that's sort of what this movie represents and what it is. It's just endless good stuff. And it's not mean. It's not like negative. It's not like, oh, this is bad. It's like pro bullying or something. Like, it's endless amounts of good. It's a comedy. It's made so that you can laugh. And you really just felt that the whole movie this movie was made so that you could laugh. And I know that sounds weird, but they don't want you to laugh anymore because you'd be laughing, quote unquote, at someone else's expense. And it's like, fuck off. So anyways, please like this video, comment, tell me what you thought about Animal House. Because I don't know, I really wanted to talk about this movie. You know, Kevin Bacon has some really good movies. Like last year, I watched Telling Lies in America. I watched Wild Things, I think last year or 2 years ago. He has such good movies. Like, you could just pick any movie of his pretty much, and it'll be like a top-tier film from what it seems. And then please subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more movie reviews. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon for the old man.